Welcome back to Square Off. Arizona's school year is barely a month old, so why are we hearing dire warnings from lawmakers and districts about K-12 schools running out of money? And why does it sound like the same fiscal cliff that schools faced last spring? Joining us to discuss that and much more, Penich-Thacker, a Democratic consultant at Agave Strategy, and Tyler Montague, a Republican consultant and activist. Welcome back to Square Off.
Thank you.
Thank you. I want to start with another K-12 story, though, the school voucher expansion, which we mentioned in our last segment, and the possibility it could be blocked this week. I laid out in that segment that petition signatures delivered before the deadline this coming Friday could halt the expansion before it can take effect. On Saturday, Save Our Schools was successful 4 years ago in blocking another expansion in a statewide vote. But here's my question for you, Dawn. If this expansion is halted on Saturday, do you think parents might be less sympathetic than they were 4 years ago, given how different the climate is today in general surrounding schools, parents coming out of the pandemic, and how that affected the way they look at their own K-12 schools?
Well, I think we will see it blocked. And no, because remember that since the first time voters rejected a universal voucher expansion, they have gone on to sign for a $1 billion increase into public education. That got taken away by the courts. They did it a second time. That made it to the ballot. They voted it into place. So I think that even though there has been an uptick in messaging against public education and for privatization, Arizona voters remain proponents of public school funding. They want money in our public schools and our charter schools, and they are valid in being wary of these privatization schemes.
Well, what about that? Do you think support for education may have eroded over the last couple years? And as well, this time there will be organized opposition to the opponents of the expansion.
Well, I think that there have been a few things that have happened that have eroded some support for the public schools. I think if you go back to the COVID era here, some of the shutdowns angered parents. They didn't like a lot of the teachers' unions wanted school closures. And if you go back to even the Red for Ed movement, the walkout angered people. So you have a few things that might have eroded a little bit, but I still think if you look at the last time this was on the ballot, it was overwhelmingly slapped down by the voters. So I still think it would be overturned.
With no opposition. There was really no organized opposition back in 2018.
Yeah, I still think that it would get overturned. I think the legislature's out a little ahead of the public on this.
All right, let's move on to the legislature again. The aggregate expenditure limit, commonly known as the AEL, around the Capitol. Basically, it's a cap on school spending and kind of a relic of the 1980s that now prevents Arizona's K-12 schools from spending the money the lawmakers gave them unless lawmakers lift the cap.
Right.
Do I have that right?
You have that right, even though it makes no sense. So the legislature and Governor Ducey himself touted this massive $1 billion plus investment into public education, but is now playing at refusing to let them spend it. So if this cap is not lifted, schools in every part of Arizona will have to give up $1.3 billion. I'm hearing school leaders say that that means they will get rid of all sports, all extracurriculars. Other school leaders are saying they're going to have to lay off teachers, staff. So it would be catastrophic. And the worst part is these are promises that the governor, the Republican legislature, and Democrats in the legislature all made before they recessed. And now they are playing politics with their own promises, possibly as retaliation for the voucher referendum being a success, and many of them as a campaign ploy.
And so just real quick, how soon could those cuts be made if the cap weren't lifted?
Well, schools are doing that math right now, getting ready, because they have to be prepared. So it could happen after winter break.
Yeah, I mean, last year it was March.
Yeah, March.
Which is about the time,
yeah.
And this will be March of 2023. Well, what about what's been going on behind the scenes? Because you have Democrats saying the governor made a pledge to us, the governor's office saying, well, yeah, we did. We made a pledge. We call a special session, but only if there were the votes for the special session. Plus, you have a lot of lame duck leaders. Do see the leaders of both chambers. What's going on?
Well, the governor said, show us the votes. right? And so I think if they did that, they'd be forced. But to understand what's going on, you have to look at the power dynamic. The Republicans use this as a tool to get concessions from the Democrats on other things. So why would they give that up? They're going to pass it. They're not going to let the apocalyptic scenario happen. The public would be outraged. They're going to use it to force Democrats to make concessions on other things, and then they'll pass the AEL.
But when?
I think they want to keep kicking the can into the next session so that they can use it for more issues.
And what is the next legislature going to look like? Isn't that a big question?
That's exactly.
The next legislature is going to be one of the more extreme legislatures that we've had in my memory.
And so maybe...
No, they need to do it before a new legislature comes into place. These are the representatives who made the promise. This is the body that has at least indicated that they have support to carry through on their promise. Anything after January, who knows? All we know is that it's going to be more extreme and most likely less inclined to support public schools.
Okay, let's look at some of the national news of the week. The latest border theater performance by a Republican governor, in this case, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, whose state shares a border with, let me check, Alabama and Georgia, I think, plucked a bunch of migrants in Texas and flew them to the elite retreat of Martha's Vineyard in Massachusetts. I think Doug Ducey better level up. Those shipping containers don't stack up anymore. So, Tyler, does this stunt shaming the Biden administration do anything to help solve our immigration issues, or just help Ron DeSantis in 2024?
Well, in Ron DeSantis's case, it's a stunt. He's trying to get attention. And so, I mean, I'd like to go to Martha's Vineyard, but I think that it's cruel. These are people. We shouldn't be playing around with real people. The legitimate side of the issue is that there really is a crisis going on. We really do need help. We really do need spending, and the federal government really does need to step up. Whether or not these stunts are the right way to call attention to it, we could debate that.
Whatever happened to Congress doing something? I mean,
that might be one of the rare...
Call me old-fashioned, but...
That might be one of the rare bipartisan agreements that U.S. immigration policy is broken, and why no one can build the courage or the will to come together and fix this when everyone agrees it needs to happen.
It's their favorite football.
Exactly.
They need that
They
football.
want it.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah. They need it to campaign on.
It creates energy that they can harness for politics.
Okay, let's end with a debate update on the televised debate for governor October 12th. Well, there won't be a debate. Democrat Katie Hobbs says she's not doing it. Debate organizers, Clean Elections Commission, say they're going to go ahead with a one-on-one interview with Kari Lake. That's what they're planning for. Do you think Kari Lake will show up for that interview on October 12th, a one-on-one interview with a skilled interviewer, Ted Simons? Do you think she'll show up?
I mean, she said that she's going to. It's hard to track down what she's saying at any given time, so we'll see. But, you know, I think that on the Hobbs side, it was a valid calculation that, you know, I have seen polls from many campaigns and many individual groups. The number of undecided voters left right now is minuscule. And so...
What, 1%, 2%?
At low single digits. Low single digits. And so that conversation of what would a debate achieve, or what would even this televised one-on-one achieve, is really, I mean, these are so few voters that this is for. It's really for political pundits and the media and those of us who like to sit around and talk about this stuff. This isn't
look at
for
Don
the voters.
blaming the media.
Right, the media. It's the media's fault. Yeah, I'd love to see it. It'd be great theater. I think Hobbs is making a mistake. I think she could actually shine, but they have a few risks that they're looking at. One, there's always a risk of making a fatal gaffe. And two, there is a bit of a charisma gap there. Kari Lake, you know, is a confident presenter. And three, that Republican debate was a clown show, and she worries about getting sullied by that. So I understand why they didn't do it. I still think she should have done it. Why? Just, I don't know, to entertain me.